Good morning and hello from ThreatQuotient. I was already introduced. My name is Markus Auer. I'm the regional sales manager, Central and Eastern Europe for ThreatQuotient. I run the sales, but I also have a very deep technical background, so I see myself more as a kind of a threat intelligence advisor. So first of all, I have to say I'm speaking a lot. I'm doing a lot of speeches. I stood on a lot of stages, but I have never stood on a virtual stage. So this is a great experience, and I'm happy to participate in this. So thank you very much to everyone who organized that. What I want to do today in the next 20 minutes is talk a bit about cyber threat intelligence and give you a bit of an introduction what cyber threat intelligence is and where it's coming from and how we want to use that to enhance our cybersecurity, to bring our cybersecurity to the next level. So cyber threat intelligence is thought to be a very new way of making our networks more secure. But actually, and that's where I want to make a big step back, is threat intelligence is more than 2,500 years old. So what happened 2,500 years ago? 2,500 years ago, a very interesting person lived with the name of Sun Tzu, and I assume a lot of you have already heard of Sun Tzu. So who was Sun Tzu? He was a pretty remarkable person. He was a philosopher and he was a general, and he led one of the largest armies in the world. And the reason why Sun Tzu became so famous was because he pretty much invented tactical warfare. At least he was the first one who wrote it down in a book, which is called The Art of War. I also assume many of you heard the book and some already read it. If you don't, get a copy of that book. It's very cheap. You can get it on Amazon for a couple of dollars. It's a very interesting book about tactical warfare. So what did Sun Tzu realize? He said, when I go into a war, it doesn't make sense to simply meet at a certain time, at a certain place. You know, these typical medieval war scenarios where two armies meet on a hill and then first they start shooting the arrows, and then the horses come with the cavalry, and then the infantry come, and then the one wins who has the most people left. He said that doesn't make sense. When I go into war, I need to prepare myself. And this book has a lot of very interesting quotes. And there's one quote of the book that really relates to threat intelligence, which I would like to read to you now. So Sun Tzu says, if you know others and know yourself, you will not be beaten in 100 battles. If you do not know others, but know yourself, you win one and lose one. And if you don't know others and don't know yourself, you will be beaten in every single battle. So in essence, what Sun Tzu says, before I go into war, I need to have information. I need to have information about the enemy, and I need to have information about myself. So what does he say? Let's go a bit deeper and analyze this quote a bit more. So the first thing Sun Tzu says, I need to know my enemy. I need to know who he is. I need to know where he is. I need to know his size. I need to know what kind of weapons he is using, but I also need to know what kind of motivation the enemy has. Why is the enemy doing this fight or this war? And I need to learn about his tactics and his techniques, right? So I need to know, who am I approaching? Who is my opponent? On the other side, Sun Tzu says, I need to know myself. So I need to know my assets that I probably need to defend. I need to know the priorities of my assets, right? So what's more important for me? Is it the food that I need to defend for my people, or is it the bridge over the river, which is a tactical instrument in war? I need to know my strengths, obviously. But I also, and this is more important, I need to know my vulnerabilities. I need to know where I'm vulnerable, where the enemy could attack me successfully. And then if I have these two pieces of information about myself and my enemy, I need to filter and correlate that information. So what does that mean? Sun Tzu says, I need to analyze what is a real threat to me, and is the threat relevant to me? As an example, Sun Tzu said, if I know the enemy is 500 kilometers away from a border, this is not a real threat to me at the moment, because I know it will take weeks, if not months, if the enemy stands in front of my door, right? So I need to filter that information and see what is a real threat and an imminent threat to me. I need to know the priorities. And then if I have filtered and correlated that information and found out the real threat, I need to disseminate this information. I need to share this information. So I need to make sure that the right information is at the right place, the right time. And Sun Tzu says, if I make these 4 steps, know my enemy, know myself, filter the relevant threats, and share this information with the right people, I am absolutely prepared for war. So, and some of you already saw there is a great relation into cybersecurity. Now, before we now make the transition from threat intelligence in Sun Tzu to cyber threat intelligence, let's look at some of the challenges we are dealing with threat intelligence. So basically, just as a quick introduction, cyber threat intelligence is the method to say, I need to know information about my adversaries. So who's out there, which groups, how are they acting? And I need what it's called indicators of compromise. For those who are not familiar with the terminology, indicators of compromise, or IOC, an IOC, for example, is an IP address that is bad and is involved in an attack. So this is the information I want to use to prepare my network and to make my network and my defense system more intelligent, so I can detect the attack faster, and I also can respond to that. That's the reason why more and more companies are entering into this cyber threat intelligence space. But when we start doing that, there are a couple of challenges we need to deal with. First of all, what we realize is that we will need multiple information sources. We need enough data in order to filter out the relevant threats for us. So some of our customers are working with 10, 20 different data sources simultaneously. And this is where the problem starts, right? How do I work with multiple data sources simultaneously? How about different formats, right? Some are sending the data via a web API, some send it via email. In worst case, you get the data in an unstructured format. So we have multiple feeds and multiple formats, and we don't have a common language of the data that we can work with. The second challenge is we don't have a lifecycle management, and we don't have a long-term threat data repository. So what companies are doing at the moment is they are using an external threat intelligence feed, and they are pushing the data into their SIEM directly. Now, while it has some value, it can create also a lot of problems, like false positives when I send irrelevant data. So data that is not a threat to me, to my SIEM, I can create false positives. But also, once I send the data to my SIEM, the data is gone. So I don't have a central database where I can work with data over a long period of time. One of the biggest challenges is finding the relevant threats. And this is especially when companies are working with free feeds, OSINT feeds, might be a term that you are familiar with. So open source data feeds, they give you the broad information about what attacks are going on in the world. So, but if I am a company in Russia or Ukraine or Poland or wherever you are, I'm not interested in a threat that's currently going on in South Korea, right? So, so when you have a close look at the data, around 89 to 98 to 95% of the data that you are getting is not relevant for you. It is noise. So one of the hardest jobs is to find these relevant threats. And the last, or also one of the biggest problems is, where do I put that data, right? I set the example, I can take the data and push the indicators into my SIEM. But I might have also other places in my network that would benefit from the data, like SOAR tools or vulnerability management tools. And a lot of the technologies are benefiting today from threat intelligence information. So if I only push it to my CM, how do I get the data into my other tools? Or do I push the data everywhere, which doesn't make sense? So these are some of the challenges that we are facing when starting with threat intelligence. Now, going back to Sun Tzu and now making the transition into cybersecurity. Sun Tzu says the first and very important thing is I need to have information about my enemy. So the question is, do we have data sources that tell us who are out there, who want to attack us? Absolutely. This is what's commonly known as the external threat intelligence or threat data sources. So there are multiple sources out there that you can use. And a lot of them are actually free to use, like OSINT feeds or information that are coming from a local and national certs. So every country has national certs that give you this information for free, right? We have sharing communities like MISP, and we also have obviously a lot of commercial provider that give you already analyzed and curated data. And these are the partners that we are working with. So commercial providers that we are working with are companies like Bluelift, CrowdStrike, IBM X-Force, Flashpoint, Recorded Future, Digital Shadows, and so on. So we have multiple feeds that are telling us who's out there. And as I said, we will need to use multiple sources simultaneously because one single data source will not give you enough data. So when we look at the details now, from these sources, these pieces of information are coming in sometimes a structured, sometimes a very unstructured format. So the first thing what we need to do is bring this data into a common language and aggregate the data. And this is where ThreatQ as a threat intelligence platform is starting to help you. So what we are doing is we are putting together these pieces of information that are coming from various sources. So we give you a full picture about who's out there, who is the enemy, what's his motivation, what campaigns have been seen. So is the enemy acting as via a spear phishing campaign or a DDoS attack or directly attacking the network? And what kind of related indicators have been seen? So IP addresses that are bad, hash values of malware, URLs or domains where we have seen phishing attacks, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to have a platform that's automatically ingesting and aggregating all this data so we know our enemy. So that's the first step. On the other side, Sun Tzu said, I need to know myself. And so the question is, do we have data sources that tell us who we are, how our networks look like? Absolutely. So this is what we call the internal threat data feeds. And these data can come from multiple technologies that you already have deployed in your network. So asset databases, what do I have in my network? CM technologies, sandboxing system, vulnerability assessment tools, et cetera, et cetera. So the next thing what we would do is we would take the data from those sources and we would build up a picture. Who am I? What does my network look like? So what are my assets? What are my vulnerabilities? And what kind of alarm messages do I see from my network? So we have a clear understanding what's going on in my network. And the next step now, and this is about finding the relevant threats. And as I said, this is probably one of the hardest job to find out what's an imminent threat to my network. Where do I need to act? Because I only have limited resources and I don't want to waste my valuable time on something that is not a real threat to my company. And this is how we do this in the sense of we are now bringing these two worlds together. The enemies and the attacks that we see from the external threat intelligence feeds, and we correlate that information with data that we are getting out of your network on a single platform, on a single database. And when we are bringing together these two worlds, we can do some really, really cool things. And because of the time reason, I just want to walk you through a very simple use case so you understand what we can do. So let's assume this afternoon we get the message there's a new and massive outbreak of a malware. Let's say it's the next WannaCry, which is overdue already. So this is the information we would get from an external threat data feed. So it would tell us there's a massive outbreak going on in Europe or even worldwide. This is the malware that has been analyzed, and the malware is attacking a specific vulnerability in your network. Vulnerabilities, as you might know, are named with CVE numbers. So this malware is targeting vulnerability CVE XYZ. So you as a company need to quickly decide, is this next WannaCry a real threat to me, and do I need to do anything? So in that case, what our platform can do is we can correlate that data with data from your internal network. And in that example, we would work with your local vulnerability assessment tools, the classical scanners. So we would query your local vulnerability assessment tool and say, hey, do we have this vulnerability in my network? The vulnerability assessment tool might report back, Markus, we have 120 systems in our network that have this vulnerability open. So now we have a relevance. We know there is something coming, right? The external threat intelligence data feeds, this is like my early tsunami warning system. I know there's something coming. And now with a platform like ThreatQ offers, we can correlate this data with internal data, and we can see, yes, there is a relevance because we have these vulnerabilities open. And now we can prioritize these threats. For example, if we start to patch all the systems instantly, so our network is protected, right? So this is where a very quick and simple use case, because I'm running a bit out of time, and there are many, many more use cases, how we can help you to operationalize this threat data in your network, right? So we're answering all the questions, and we are making sure that the threat data you're working with is accurate, it's relevant, and it's timely. And the last part, what Sun Tzu says, is we need to share that information. We need to disseminate this information. Now, first of all, who would benefit from a central threat data repository? Obviously, everyone in the security team. One of the biggest issues is data silos. Where do I find the right data? Now, if you have all the relevant threat data from external and internal sources in one place, it's very easy for the security team to get to the right data to make the right decision, right? So we already talked about sharing data with the infrastructure, right? So we can send IOCs to your infrastructure. We can query tools like vulnerability assessments. We will get the feedback back into the platform if we see something. But there are also other parts in your network that would benefit from this. For example, the risk management. Now, the risk management is not so interested in bad IP addresses or hash values. They would be more interested in deeper information about who is the attacker. Is this attacker targeting a specific vertical like banking that we are working in, right? So they can work with this data. But also executives, the board of directors or the CISOs, they would benefit from this. And they would not be interested in, are we attacked by APT 28 or 29 or 30? They would like to get a security status. How is our cyber defense doing compared to the attacks that are out there? Red, amber, green. What's the overall status, right? So this is basically what Sun Tzu said, and this is what we would like to transfer this process into your cyber defense center. Now, for the last 2 minutes, let me spend on how would a platform look like to help us overcome the challenges and to start a cyber threat intelligence process. So what ThreatQ is, we are a software. We are a software that sits in your network. So we are a pure on-prem software. You can get it as a virtual appliance. You can get it as a software that you install on a local Linux or CentOS server. And the platform consists of several layers. And as I said already, we see cyber threat intelligence as a process. And there's a process called the OODA loop, which comes from the military background. And I don't want to go into detail, but it consists of four parts. The first part is the observation part. This is where we need to look at data, right? So the first layer in our platform is the data management layer, which can take any kind of data from any source in any format, and we would automatically normalize the data, we deduplicate the data, we aggregate the data, and we are building up a local threat data repository. The next step in that process is called Orient, or in our platform, it's the analytics layer. This is where the data is analyzed, the data is correlated, and most importantly, the data is prioritized. So we want to automatically filter out the threats that are relevant for your specific company or your specific country, so you can focus on those threats. The next part is in the process is where the decisions are made. And in our platform, it's the operations layer. And this is where we decide what do we want to do with the data? Do we want to send indicators to our infrastructure? Do we initiate a playbook or workflow? Or do I need to collaborate with other teams of the security team to work on this threat? And the last part is what it's called ACT. And this is where the OODA loop comes from. And the action now will, on the one side, be done by your local tools. So our platform has integrations into more than 80 different vendors, from sandboxing system, vulnerability assessment, CM technology, SOAR platform, case management, etc., etc. We have over 100 out-of-the-box integrations into those tools. And now we can make sure that every tool in your network is benefiting from the data, and we are making sure that the right data is at the right place, the right time. And obviously, this platform would help everyone in the security team from the SOC, the incident response, the threat analyst, and so on, to collaboratively work on a single platform in a single interface. And this will dramatically speed up processes in incident response, security analytics, spear phishing, and so on. So I'm already a minute over time. Let me just give you one quick look at what this platform looks in real life. 30 seconds on this slide. So as I said before, the first thing is we would look at data. So this is the part where it says incoming intelligence. And this is where we would connect to threat intelligence or threat data sources. We have a couple of commercial providers connected in our demo platform, like iSight, Cofense, Recorded Future. We have a couple of open source sources, like the National Vulnerability Database. Bambanek is a great open source. And this is where I would see the data that's coming in from these sources. Now, have a look at the total amount of data in this platform. We have over 15 million indicators that data that came from these data sources. Now, obviously, 15 million is a very big number, and you can't work with 15 million indicators in your network. And this is where I said you need to filter the relevant threats. So this is the start. This is the data, and this here on the top is the outcome that our platform will provide you. So we will automatically filter out the threats that are relevant for you. And now in this demo platform, I would only look at indicators that are marked medium, high, and very high. So something's going on for whatever reason, this is relevant to me. And now look at the number of indicators and the percentage. We are now dealing with only 3% of the data that we can now work within our infrastructure, send to my CM, send to my SOAR tool, etc., etc. And this is where we help you to filter out that noise, because if you don't have a platform like ThreatQ, you will be lost in data and you will not benefit from a threat intelligence program. Okay, 3 minutes over time. Just a quick wrap up. As I said, this platform works across multiple use cases, and I assume we will be able to share the slides with you. So if you want more information, you can go to our webpage and have a deeper look into these single processes. And as a last slide, as I said, a threat intelligence platform, we need to be open. We need to be able to work with any kind of technology. And this is not a good overview, but not even a complete slide of the of our technology partners that we are currently working with. So every logo that you see on the screen, we have an out-of-the-box integration. And if you want to hear more, please stop by our virtual booth, which is in the corner of this hall. So myself and also my colleague Falk Schwendeke who's our technical expert. We will be there. We're happy for a chat, for a call. And if you're interested in learning more, like a demo, we can always schedule a 1-hour live demo individually. Just approach us. We are here to help. Having said that, 4 minutes over time, I do apologize. And do we have any questions?
We don't have any questions.
Excellent. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Markus, very much.
Have a great day. Goodbye.
Okay, goodbye.